Okay, we are here at Subaru of London to pick up this. A brand new 2024 Subaru GT, that's the top trim, SPT CVT automatic. And the reason why we want to take this for a review today and a test drive is the obvious, because we want to see if them putting a CVT of all things in a WRX was a mistake. Are they selling out or is it truly a sports transmission? So we're going to take this for a walk around and then a test drive to see if it really is fun. So let's go. Well, hello, Brent. You're on candid camera.
Oh, phenomenal. Excellent. Keys all set up, and you maybe saw the car around the door.
Red one?
Yes. I thought that would show good.
Yeah.
It's fun to drive that.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's do our walk around. Here we go. So let's just take a look at the side here. So WRX, you know, this is really, a lot of people are undecided about this look. So whether you get the base model all the way up to the GT here or the more sporty RS this year, they're basically the same in the sense of they've got this plastic cladding, which is kind of a new corporate thing they're going for. But of course, Subaru is an off-road type company, so it does make sense. They do say there's some practicality to it. So if we come up here, it's got kind of this golf ball look here that's supposed to help you cut through the wind. And most importantly, the idea is if you do take this, and a lot of people do, even people that have families and things like that, they like adventuring and things like that. So this way, you know, you're going to get that scuffed up, which is going to be harder to scuff up than the paint. It's kind of grown on me over the last couple of years. The only thing that I'm kind of disappointed on is I was always a sucker with the WRX and the STI. They had a nice side vent here. So technically, again, this is functional, but I don't know, it's just not quite the same as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, no, all in all, I do like the look. The WRX, or the VB, which is our second generation true WRX. What I mean by that, it used to be built on the Impreza back in the day, and then they had a VA, which was its own body in white, and the same with this. So this, for the first time, is not shared with anything else in the lineup. It is its own vehicle, and what I really like about it, very much like the GR Corolla and things like that. Ooh, look at this here. You got this big hump on the back where they've kind of drawn out the sides of the vehicle, made it a little bit wider, very aggressive looking. And again, same thing on the front here. And what we got is that big functional hood scoop. Right from the beginning, I loved this car when it came out in North America in the early 2000s, and that hood scoop was a seller then, and it still is now. Now they flatten that out a little bit, make it more aerodynamic, but it does take in quite a bit of air. And yeah, a lot of functionality on here when we go down here, and that's one of the things that I like. Now you can see right in there, and we're gonna pop the hood here in a second, but one of the things I want to show you as well is the fog lights on this package, but yes, the steering responsive headlights. I have a GTI Volkswagen of mine do that, and it's nice. Is it totally necessary? No, but if you can afford it, it's a nice feature for sure. So okay, let's quit talking and pop the hood here, because that's what we all want to see. Look at it. The FA 24, which is the bored out version of the FA 20, which I have in my car. So you got the top mounted intercooler there. We got 2.4 liter, like we said, which is capable of producing 271 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And what's amazing with this engine, if you don't understand, it's a boxer engine. So it's kind of like Porsche and stuff where it's flat. It's almost flat. So it's a lot lower down in the car, and the pistons go sideways like a boxer. And doesn't fight gravity as much, and helps you get a lower center of gravity. Really get down low in the car and further back off that axle. So it's closer, especially in my BRZ, as like a front mid-engine car. It's a little bit different here on the WRX, but nonetheless, it's an amazing engine that way. Now it does have a direct injection, which most cars do nowadays, so you can get some dirt built up over time, but that's just the way of the game nowadays. Now, what else to talk about as well is aluminum block and aluminum heads. You got 16 valve, dual overhead cam, variable valve timing. Like, this is an amazing engine. So it's not going to get you the best fuel economy, but it definitely has those performance advantages because it's so flat packed and so low, which is capable of rocketing this fun machine from 0 to 60 in realistically probably the high fives. I've heard as low as the mid fives in around 14 seconds in the quarter mile, and you're looking at just over 130 miles an hour top speed. So that's plenty fast nowadays on public roads and things like that. What else to talk about performance wise? Of course, Subaru, you are looking at their symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Now, some people are disappointed with the WRX this year, or I shouldn't say this year, with the VB that came out in 2022 because of the fact that you no longer have an STI option. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard rumor that's because they're basically one company with Toyota, and when Toyota wanted to market the GR Corolla, this would have cannibalized that with the STI, but giving Subaru the option to have a electric STI in the near future probably. But nonetheless, one of the things that I really do like with the WRX, whether you get the GT, the RS, or even the base one, it is its own car. Performance is important to them, and they have really done a good job as far as that goes. Now, as we said, you don't have the more sophisticated center differential. And in fact, on this one here with the automatic, you have an open diff, but you do have a different style to transfer that power full time because of this sport CVT transmission, which we'll talk about. So that, again, we don't, even Subaru doesn't want to say CVT because it's a bad word in the car industry, but I have to say, if this is really anything like that Outback Wilderness Edition I got to do, that was not even the performance version, and I tell you, if you took a lay person and put them in there, they probably wouldn't know that it wasn't a normal traditional torque converted transmission. So similarly with this, I'm really excited. So what they do is in the sport mode, they give you 8 mimicked gears. So not only that, supposedly you're going to be able to hit it off the rev limiter and things like that, unlike my Volkswagen, which wants to shift for you, even though they say it's manual. Yeah, so really interested in testing that out. Now again, it seems like a bit of a weird thing to put in a car like this because it has such big uptake for manual transmission, but this is also, the WRX is one of the best-selling family vehicles, and Subaru's one of their best-selling family vehicles, so it does make sense in that regard. Now this GT here, we're going to talk about some of the other performance features that are a little weird because this here is supposed to be more like their luxury one, even though it is a performance type car right from the get-go. But what do they put on here is adaptive suspension, so you can get softer or harder, but they didn't put it on the RS, which is their performance one, but they did make that one a little bit stiffer, about 5%, so maybe they're going in that direction. And again, that extra system here adds weight, right? So with the RS being the performance one, they probably wouldn't want to do that, and hopefully we'll get to do a follow-up video with that as well later this week. But nonetheless, when we come down here, one of the other differences you're going to see performance-wise compared to that RS is you just have normal brakes on here. So I think you're looking at basically around 13-inch, if I'm not mistaken, discs all the way around. Obviously, you have 2 piston up front and 1 piston in the back compared to the 6 piston, whoa, monsters on that RS. But basically, it doesn't matter what you get nowadays because of that RS, they've given you a bigger brake cylinder, master cylinder on there, so you're gonna get better braking power. And one of the other things I was just telling the salesperson that I really appreciate with Subaru is Subaru and Volvo are 2 companies that really pride themselves on having a safe vehicle and marketing that as well. And even though this car just came out a couple years ago, they have put a lot of effort into strengthening the rear end, especially for the rear passengers, to make it even more safe. Like this thing here has knee airbags, it's got side curtain airbags, like you name it, and with that symmetrical all-wheel drive system, not to bore you to death, but most systems that you see, even the fancier marketed ones, are just a front-wheel drive vehicle that has the ability to shift some of that power back. Now this one here is always on, which is nice, and you used to be able to in the STI to shift it left and right too, but for the most part, unless you're tracking this vehicle, when I say tracking, rally, that type of thing, really this is going to be amazing. So what else to talk about? I think we pretty much covered it as far as styling and things like that. When we come back here, one of the things, you know, people make fun of is it says it looks like it has a diaper. I don't know if that's, I like it actually. But we'll start it up here to hear what these factory pipes sound like. Especially the cold startup. Yeah, it's pretty impressive, and you can upgrade these through the factory as well and put an STI style exhaust, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of STI performance packages that you can get right from here, just like my car. It's more looks than performance as far as that goes. But yeah, all right, let's take a look at the trunk here, because one of the things is you've got 13 cubic feet worth of space back here. Next thing is, how do I figure, oh, there you go, fancy button. Woo, look at all my camera gear. So as you can see, that's not bad. Now, of course, they used to have a hatchback. You know, you got your Golf Rs and your GR Corollas and things like that. So the hatch is obviously going to be a little bit more practical, but some people like myself just prefer the look of sedan still. And I mean, 13 cubic feet is a fair amount. And of course, you can see in the B-roll, you got 60-40 split seats. And Subaru, yeah, has always been really good, a nice wide opening and things like that. But they have closed that gap up a little bit to make it even more structurally sound. But compared to my B or Z, you've got plenty of room. So you can put, I've heard people put mountain bikes here, your tires and things like that if you do track days and things like that. And the rear air diffuser on the diaper there. Now let's go to the back, because I think you're looking at about 98 cubic feet of passenger space, which isn't bad. Again, this is a pretty decent sized car compared to when the WRX came out in the early 2000s when I wanted one originally. This seems like twice the size of a car. No, it's not quite twice the size, but it seems like it. Oh, now let's just look at that. First of all, so I don't have my Moose baby seat here, which is the same as the human baby seat. But I could see right away that I'd be able to get it in, and I don't know what degree that is, but that's almost like an SUV. So again, for a sedan, that is really, really nice. So let me pop in here. Oh! So that's not bad. I'm 5'7", I'm tall, and around 150 pounds, so I play in a local basketball team. But anyway, in all seriousness here, yeah, I have tons and tons of room. I feel like I can extend and not hit my head. Now granted, if I was like 6 foot something, it might be a little bit different. I have to lean forward, but not bad. You've got map pockets here. They're somewhat cut out, and again, this is a less expensive car, especially nowadays, which is frightening to think that a new car around here in Canada is around 60 some odd thousand dollars and 50 for a used. This is a pretty screaming deal. Now, yeah, so map pockets, and then on the GT here, you've got the upgraded, you've got the heated seats back here for the outboard passengers, and you've got the USB C's. And a USB, look at that. Ooh, and a little thing to put your stuff, isn't that nice? And one of the things with Subaru too, you do have actual functional cup holders that work. Yeah, all right, oh, and cup holders in the middle here, I'm assuming, because that's important. All right, yes, okay. So, you know, all in all, pretty comfortable back here, but you don't care because you're stuffing passengers back there. You care about what's up front, like me. So, let's try to get in here. Same thing. Well, that door opens up really, really wide. So I don't know if they're expecting wide people to buy the car and drive it. I don't know. But nonetheless, let's see if my little alligator arms can grab that door. Oh. That's terrible. All right. Okay, so nice thing, and again, now with this GT trim in here, you're talking your top trim, right? So we've got all the bells and whistles. Now they don't have the Recaros. They have kept those, even though this is a mixed bag of performance in here. It's performance-y type seats, and I really like them. You've got the micro suede or the Alcantara type, the red stitching, as you can see, which is really nice, and the WRX, which is embroidered. Yeah, and they're very, very comfortable. We'll talk more about that when we go for a ride. You have manual, telescopic, and tilting steering wheel, which is handy. Now, one of the things is it's a bit of a chunky steering wheel. Again, it's this rally type car, which I don't mind so much that, but I'm assuming that they put this kind of cheaper material. I'm assuming leather, but it really feels and looks cheap. But to the point of, I work for a corporation, like there's no way that would have passed in their testing and everything. I would imagine it's done for a reason. So if it's anything like the Outback that I was lucky enough to do a review on, it's probably to be more utilitarian, so easier to keep clean and things like that. Some of that softer, prettier leather wouldn't hold up as well. So let's turn this thing on. Start button. Woo, I don't know if you can really tell. That's what I was talking about, that cold weather startup. Woo, that sounds good. All right, so one of the things here, they kept the manual analog gauges like my car with a little information in the middle, which is nice. All kinds of buttons on this chubby steering wheel. It's a little school bus-ish, the way that the tilt is, but again, that's personal preference, and I'm spoiled with my BRZ. It's got an amazing driving position on there. But the paddles back here. So again, not my favorite paddles, that is, especially on this, because I love the manual. But again, if for some reason you've had your fill of manual, or you're not able to drive a manual for certain reasons, I would say that this is a great option, absolutely. So let's look at that manual transmission. Now it kind of keeps to a traditional look nowadays. Sometimes we got like those buttons and things like that for P and park, and you got to wiggle it around. It's like snakes and ladders. This is fine. You do get a parking brake on here, and it has automatic vehicle hold, which is something that's unique to this trim as well. Now when we come to this giant iPad stuck in the middle here, I like the way it's at least integrated, to be fair. I'm not a fan of the big giant screens, but it doesn't look bad compared to some of the things or some of the companies that looks like they're tacking them on nowadays. Subarus, I own one. They're pretty good. They're not bad. I mean, I like it. It's just sometimes my Apple CarPlay drops off for some reason, but a lot of companies that happens with. But let me just show you here quickly. As you can see, big icons, things like that. Pretty responsive. I like the home button. I like the fact that they got your heated seats. It may not be a hard button, but at least it's hard in the sense that it's like stuck on the bottom here. I really appreciate. What else to show you just really quick is this mode button. This is going to be what's a little bit different on here. So when you hit this mode button, it's going to give you options that like the RS, for instance, won't. And this is where you're going to get those 8-minute gears, I'm assuming, in the Sport Plus. We'll try that out. And one of the things to mention here before I forget, on this trim, you actually have built-in navigation. So I don't know if that's important to you, but it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which most people use nowadays, and that's why a lot of these companies are kind of backing off to try to save you money. Yeah, so of course here we've got all your plugins and things like that. You've got 2 cup holders, and here you've got some more storage with a 12-volt in there, which is nice, and some felt, and I believe that this here is an upgrade to have it leather. Now, if you get a base, believe it or not, they put like 2 in this cavity here, 2 screens from the early 1800s. So it's wild looking. I would not recommend that trim. Now, let's see about practice. Ooh, look at that. I can put all kinds of sandwiches in there. It's like Rady Rides would say. I love it. Okay, so, and on this here as well, we do have a sunroof, which is nice. Now, it's a smaller sunroof, kind of like the ones back in the day, not the big panoramic one now or anything else like that. But hey, it's nice to get a little sun in here. So let's take this thing for a drive, because that's all we really care about. Okay, time for our Traffic Light Grand Prix acceleration test so we can race up to that stoplight just as fast as we can and hammer on the brakes. So here we go. But first, let's switch it to the most fun mode, which would be Sport Plus, because I think it has 8 fake gears, and I want to see if we can actually, in manual mode, switch them ourselves, or if it's going to do it for us, and what it feels like with a performance CVT. All right, so manual mode. All right, I think this is about as good as we're going to get. All right, so ooh, a little sluggish off the get-go. All right, off the rev limiter, if you will. All right, let's hammer on those brakes. Oh, you know, not bad. I have to say, all in all, not bad. Now, this doesn't have the big 6 pistons. Hopefully, we'll get to test that out, as we said, in a few days. But very similar to the braking of the 22 that we tried, which is, to me, sufficient. I've heard these aren't the best on track because it's a 3,500-pound car, essentially, things like that, with these brakes, unless you put different pads on it and different fluids and things like that. But all in all, just for driving around, these brakes feel pretty good as far as I'm concerned. Pass. All right, time for a highway and handling test, just to see how this Sport transmission handles. Okay, so we're always, as we say, go a little faster, and you probably need to on an on-ramp, even though it's a lot of fun. See how the symmetrical all-wheel drive and the Sport transmission works. Okay, so I do have it in the manual mode. It's holding pretty tight. Now, granted, these aren't the 19-inch extra sticky tires like the RS now gets, but they're pretty good. All right, so let's give it some juice here. See if we got any problems getting on the highway. No, absolutely not. That felt really, really good, actually. So let's put this up into 8th gear, and then we're going to put mode, and let's go comfort. All right, so I'm imagining this is going to soften up the suspension, because this has the active, adaptive, I should say, suspension on here. I can't really tell a huge difference, to be honest with you. It kind of reminds me of my Mark 7 generation of Golf. Not a lot of variants, but it is nice to have the options, absolutely. And it's stiff like my Golf, in the sense of it feels sporty, but not punishing by any means. It just kept more firm around that leaning corner, so there wasn't a ton of body roll, things like that. I'd be very curious in a few days to see what that RS is like. But this is probably more of a family cruiser. That's why you got the automatic. You just want to have a little fun like we did on our acceleration test. So how is this the rest of the time? So let's just be quiet. So we got it in comfort. Probably enough noise to drown out some children, absolutely. It's a WRX, so even though it's 3,500 pounds nowadays, considering all the safety equipment this has in it, and tech equipment, which we're going to test in a second, like your active or your lane keep and all that type of stuff, it is pretty amazing that they kept it to around 3,500 pounds. But a lot of that, I would imagine they'd have to sacrifice some sound deadening, things like that. So it's not as quiet, and it's a bit of a boxier car as well, but it's not super loud by any means. It's just not a luxury car. No, I'd say all in all, this is really, really a comfortable vehicle. We have tested it before, so you can check out that link. I'll put it in the description for some more, for a more robust review, I guess you'd say, as far as the driving, things like that go. But no, this is really, really, really good, and a pleasant surprise for any automatic in a WRX, let alone a Sport CVT, which leads me to my final thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts time. We are back. And I have to say, I am pleasantly surprised. I had the ability to do the Wilderness Outback Edition a couple years ago with a similar transmission. I was impressed then, so I was actually excited to do it. Very, very curious, and it was amazing. I think if you put most people in that car and you didn't tell them it was a CVT, they probably wouldn't know. The only reason I could really tell, obviously I'm looking for it, but when you pulled in the paddles and the gear shift, even though it was mimicking, at least I'm thinking that they did that on purpose, mimicking a gear shift, it felt like there's little jolts and things like that. It was really interesting, but when you switch the gears, there was a certain level of refinement or squishiness to it that felt a little bit different, but it was pretty amazing, I have to say. I really like the fact that you could go off the rev limiter, unlike my Volkswagen GTI that's supposed to be sporty that switches the gears for you. That was a pretty nice feature. Really the only downside to it, aside from being less engaging, because I like a manual transmission, was the fact that it felt a little bit more sluggish. So if you have the opportunity, please go ahead and watch the test drive that we did on the RS manual version of this same car as a compare. And definitely it felt a lot more zippy, especially in the lower gears and things like that. But definitely the car did not feel sluggish or anything else like that. So if you're not in a position to drive a manual transmission, or you've just had enough of them but you still want a fun adventurer car that looks unique and things like that, I don't think that you can go wrong with a 2024 Subaru WRX SPT GT. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again next time.